So what I was saying was I would basically be abstracting all the concepts of machine learning and everything that you need to know in order to build, in order to properly build a model. And I'll be doing it without providing much details about the mathematics, so that later when we deep dive into it, you will be able to understand it and relate to it. Starting, I would like to introduce the ML team responsible for doing all our sessions and all other activities. We are also planning to take all the sessions in parallel, which means that we will be having theoretical sessions and practical sessions in parallel, so that you can apply all the knowledge that you've learned in the theoretical session directly on the practical one. So before going into the before understanding machine learning, let's just view some of the applications. First, here we have a self-driving car. It's it's one of the hottest buzzwords right now. It allows a car to basically drive by itself. Allows it to basically manage all sorts of computationally expensive things like detecting cars and making sure to find a path with which they can easily go through areas from point A to point B. Next, we have object detection. It basically used in case of surveillance and allows us to basically keep track of what objects are there in a particular frame or in a set of frames or in a video. Next, we have autonomous drone, or in other words, any form of autonomous vehicle. What they allow us to do is basically automate the entire process of what humans have been doing for so long. Has been of great help. Next, we have Alexa and we have Google Assistant, which have been helping us in our day-to-day. Next, I would like to introduce some artworks generated by AI. AI is not just about solving problems; it's also about generating artworks. A video playing on the left-hand side, like whose style has been modified by the picture given below. Right. Next, we have a meme which has been quite popular in the last few days, and this is also generated with the. Now, next we have a very special image. About is basically the whole purpose of generating this image was to try to understand what kind of features or what kind of areas a particular neural network looks whenever it's trying to process an image. That's the first question. Which algorithm do you think was responsible for that particular GIF? What you have to do is go to slido.com and your answers. Remember, I'm actually talking about the rightmost one with the dog, P1. Actually, the correct answer is deep dream, not style transfer. And style transfer is actually the top left one. It's actually done through style transfer. Actually done, and this is responsible for deepfake. Deepfakes are responsible for output. For going further, this was a tweet by Bill Gates where he was appreciating how good AI bots have been, and they were able to not just they're not normal humans; they were able to beat experienced esports players. Now, I want you to guess which game Bill Gates here is talking about. Yeah, looks like the majority are correct. It was Dota 2. The AI model was named as OpenAI 5. So you can Google it and look it up. They were able to defeat 96.4 players in the esports scenario. That's how good learning has reached peak. Now, before understanding the concepts, let us consider the following scenario. Let's say there's an alien that has landed on Earth as a human in disguise, right? And let's say for some unforeseen reason, he has to earn money. And for that, he has taken a job at a local grocery store and he was asked to separate apples and oranges. So the problem is this alien has never been to Earth before, right? And another point that another thing that we have to keep in mind that he's colorblind, which means he's not sensitive to the color band which we can see. Okay, all he can see is in black and white right now, and he also has no idea what an apple or an orange is. Question is, how is he supposed to solve this particular problem? So the first thing that he does is he goes and tries to collect as many apples and oranges as possible. After doing that, he basically notes down all the important characteristics that you can observe by looking or by observing these two particular fruits. So let's say, now remember he was colorblind, so instead of writing down the colors, he has chosen to write down the wavelength of the color. Let's say he has a special device or something with which he can calculate or he can detect the wavelength of color which is coming out and reflected from the fruits. Next, he holds those fruits firmly and he tries to understand what kind of texture those. Okay. In this case, let's say the first example was an apple. Next, he tried to weight those. Similarly, he took all the fruits that he gathered and he noted down all the important characteristics. Next, he does is he divides the two, like whatever data he collected, he divides them into two halves. Okay. And one of the halves has comparatively more data than the other one. And he decides that he will use the first one to learn the different features of those other one to test whether his knowledge was good enough or not, or whether he has to learn more about them. Now the learning process begins. So what he does is he picks a random fruit. He then makes an educated guess. Right now, when he's guessing for the first time, he's just making a random guess. He has no knowledge, so no prior knowledge. Random guess, and he then tries to understand whether he was right or wrong and how wrong he was. Okay. If he was right, then it's a good thing. If he was wrong, he was trying to understand how wrong he was. Like, was he wrong about the firmness of the fruit, or was he wrong about the color, or what made him wrong in the first place? That he's trying to understand. And while understanding, he's also trying to improve the strategy that he's using in order to guess which fruit he's holding right now. And he's continuing this process until and unless all of the fruits which are there in the first half of the data set is exhausted, right? So he keeps doing this again and again, and eventually after a few number of tries he decides to take a self-test on the other half. And as he takes his self-test, he realizes that his predictions or his answers weren't correct enough. These weren't good at all. What he does is keeps doing the learning process again and again and tries improving it, tests and self-tests. Now next, what happens is with every test his performance improved, but it wasn't perfect. He kept improving his skills as long as he was as long as possible, right? So eventually he decides that he would take up the job and he would try to work on it. And surprisingly, he was performed was quite good. It was not perfect, but owner was quite satisfied with it. So you must be wondering, why am I talking about a random alien, and a random alien who's trying to figure out between apple and oranges, right? The answer is that's exactly how a machine learning algorithm works. Not just an algorithm, like the entire machine learning stack. So let's go and into 7 steps of machine learning. First step is gathering data. Second step is to prepare that data. Third is to choose an appropriate model and work on that data. Fourth is to train the data. Fifth is to evaluate, then tune that model, then predict whatever problem it was trying to solve. So if I try to analogize this with the story of that particular alien, gathering data would correspond to gathering apples and oranges. In case of preparing data, that would be referring to the noting down of important characteristics, rating them, in which he would learn from one half and he would test himself on the other half. Choosing a model would uh, refer to the strategy of learning he was uh, just taking up basically. Should he look for the color, or should he look for the wavelength first? He look for the and things like that. Next, we have the training process. It was the actual learning process that he has to go through. The loop which I showed you, where he used to pick up and make a guess and then check how wrong he was, and the entire process. Next, he uh, basically evaluates himself, self-tests. That's an evaluation step, which is done in machine step of tuning the model, which was in which he used the outcome of the test to determine which part of his strategy he should change or to learn the problem successfully. Finally, the prediction refers to the actual job of him separating the apples and oranges. Okay, so question is neural. Yeah, I guess he was trying to answer that question. Okay, next is why machine learning. Couldn't we just do this using traditional program? First point is there can be too many varieties of apples and oranges. For apples, you can have a red apple, you can have a good apple. Let's say there are crab apples. In case of oranges, we have varieties of oranges. Or there are too many data points to understand and write the correct logic to solve that problem. Even if I sit down and try to write the logic, it will be very difficult for me. Write various if-else statements, make sure that I'm able to get, I'm able to predict one of the fruits. Now, another problem is rewriting the entire logic. Like, for example, if I'm writing a particular code, determine whether a fruit is orange or apple. Let's say for some reason I need to find out whether I need to classify between an apple and a guava, let's say. In that case, I have to rewrite the whole logic. I cannot reuse the code which I wrote for apple and oranges. Then we have then if I have to classify between multiple objects. For example, if I have to classify between apple and orange and a guava, that case the logic becomes very complicated. Last of all, sometimes we are just lazy enough to write the whole code. We would like someone else to do the hard part for us. Now, introducing a new paradigm. So far, now in traditional programming, what we have done is we have first provided an input, then we have provided the rules along with it, get the output. For example, if I want to find the palindrome of a number, if I have to check whether a number is palindrome or not, what we do is we provide the input and we also provide the rules of how to check it. Then eventually we get the output whether it's palindrome or not. Whereas in case of machine learning, it's a bit different. Here what happens is we provide the input and the output as well. The rules that we need are generated by the machine learning model. So we don't have to work hard enough to understand the rules that will be given us by the machine learning model. So before going further, let me define what machine learning is. And the classic definition from Mitchell is that a computer program is set to learn from experience to some p if the task as measured by p with experience. So if I try to relate this to the alien problem, that case the task t referring to apples and oranges, he would be referring to the experience that he had while separating the apples, also learning how he did that. Right? So understanding which feature he should be given more importance, or which particular feature or the which particular characteristic he should be prioritizing more compared to others come under this particular subtopic. And finally, the performance would be fraction of that he was able to separate correctly. Example, if he was able to correctly classify 80 among 100 fruits, performance would be 80 by 100, or in other words, 80%. Let's try to understand the difference between common terms in learning, artificial intelligence. These terms have been used by a lot of people interchangeably without knowing the meaning of them. Let me quickly discuss the differences. First, let us try to understand what artificial intelligence is. Artificial intelligence is basically an entire bubble which covers everything makes computers behave smart. Like anything which makes a computer behave uh, very close to a human is considered to be an artificial intelligent project or something. The thing in and small subset of it is known as machine learning, and another small subset of machine learning is deep learning. Now let us try to understand what artificial now this is a very common that I've found. It says that the artificial science and engineering of making computers behave in ways that require human intelligence. As you can observe that this definition itself is very general, right? It just tells you what to do, but doesn't tell you how to do it. Once that the computer needs to act as if it has human intelligence, but how you're supposed to do that is not mentioned. So it can also be implemented using traditional programming. Not necessary that you have. It also deals with how human and computer interaction work. Wide particular necessary get the necessary output has nothing to do with data. You can simply, as I said before, you can use simple traditional solve whatever problem you want to. Autonomy, like one example would be like if you have built object detection robot, sorry, object avoidance robot. So what it does, it basically uses an Arduino and a simple sensor, right? You're not using any form of data, but even though like without using data, you're still able to detect objects and avoid it. So that's part of an AI problem, like that you can classify it as an AI project, not a machine learning project, because there's no data involved in it. Finally, there's search plan and proof like pipeline which we have for AI related problems. One good example I would say is A star search path finding algorithm. Really finds the path between point A and point. That's that's an AI algorithm and not a machine. Now let's talk about deep learning. So before discussing deep learning, I would like to talk about this particular, let's say, node. Okay, so let us consider that this node takes in data, does some calculation, and gives out a particular value. This node is also able to turn out multiple values. Okay, not necessarily that it can out only one single value. It can also give out multiple values. This particular job is also as a perceptron, specific machine learning algorithm. You don't have to worry about it. We will do it in later sessions. What it does is basically takes in data, does some calculation, gives out values. Now imagine we have multiple such perceptrons. That becomes a layer. So let's say I have multiple such layers. Let's say this is second layer, the third layer, and the fourth. In this case, you can see that as we progress, the layers get deeper and deeper, and hence we get the name deep learning. This entire setup is also a network. So this is the like building block of deep learning. Fine line, and this is also the fine line between machine learning and all the algorithms which are in deep learning are also machine learning algorithms. All the algorithms in machine, not a deep learning. And there's another Q&A. Like no, like to have any questions, ask any questions.
You can also unmute and ask if you want to, get something walked over again. Like, do you want him to discuss something again?
Data science is basically using the concepts of machine learning, AI, and deep learning solve problems related to data. Right. Example, if let's say there's a company and they produce a particular product. Now they want to know that which part of the product should be changed in order to improve their sales. Right. In that case, what you can do is you can use a simple machine learning model. In that model, you can try to understand that which particular feature can be changed in order to improve sales. Right. So it's basically using all those like concepts to determine a particular answer in data. Okay, that fine. Like if I go back to the Venn diagram, data science would be somewhere. It's not a part. It's not exactly under artificial intelligence, but it makes of all these concepts allows us to answer questions. Well, in case of practical examples, I would say like any form of complicated problems that you see, like including computer vision, language processing, they're all done using deep learning. Okay. The main difference is this particular image that you're seeing in front of you. As soon as you add multiple layers to this particular algorithm of perceptron, immediately becomes deep learning. That's the only difference. So as long as you are working with neural networks, you're basically working with deep learning. That's the idea. An example, like for example, the convolutional neural networks. That's an example where uh, basically take images and form convolutions on it. Then you again pass that convolution back into this particular layer. Right? Like for example, CNN is a deep learning algorithm. Then RNN is a deep, whereas a linear regression or logistic regression part of machine. If you're dealing with a lot of data, then you use deep learning. Not dealing with much, go with. Now let's guys commonly used ML terms. In the first step, we are supposed to gather data, right? The real world, how do we collect such apples in real world, right? First method is from data scraping. What is data scraping? Scraping basically means gathering data from other human readable sources, anything, including websites, videos, images, anything which can be read by a human, can be understood by a human. Second is surveys, where we directly ask humans to, for example, give away how well they have performed test, and depending on that, we can find whether a particular class, like how good a particular class is, how many segments of that class are like segment of which segment of students are good at uh, good in studies and which segment isn't. Can do that. Finally, we are manually gathering data. For example, if you're trying to build, say, a leaf disease classifier, so what you do is you can go ahead and take pictures yourself, various leaves. Then you can use those data to build your model. I would like to know what other ideas do you have is of human readable data. For example, I gave an example of website, then gave an example of text data, video data. What other things if is a good place to get human? Audio files is a good one. You can use audio files to get time related data, Aadhaar cards. But the problem with Aadhaar card is getting access to Aadhaar details. If you get the access, that's a good thing. You will be fine, but you will have PDF. A mark sheet. You can also like scrape data from medical records, understand the medical condition, try to understand whether determine whether how long that survive or the treatment. Price. So you basically get the idea, right? So any form of human readable data will help you like will basically mean extracting or scraping data. Next, the data preparation part. Now that we have collected our data, we need to make sure that the data is clean, is able to be understandable by the computer. First thing that we usually do is getting rid of data points belong to the data set. In other words, we call it as outliers. Example, cases in case of our like the alien example, we can presume that there might be a random pineapple among the apples and rotten fruit. That particular pineapple doesn't belong either apple or oranges, so it's an outlier. We should get rid of it, or we shouldn't learn anything from particular example. Next we have is making sure that whatever data we are providing the model, it's able to understand it. Process to do that is known as feature engineering. For example, in our previous case, we saw that our alien colorblind. Instead of providing the color, we provided the wavelength. That particular. Next is handling missing values, or in other words, imputation. A very subjective thing. Like people have different opinions on how to impute values. Also talk about this in our later session. One example could be that while he was weighing his fruits, one of his maybe his weighing machine malfunctioned. He was not able to weigh some fruits. What he would do is instead of putting a random value, he would keep them blank. Also making sure that data set is balanced, right? Example, while gathering apples and oranges, if say he gathered way too many apples instead of oranges, he could virtually think that every fruit that he comes across is an apple. Instead of trying to understand which is an apple and orange, he could basically answer apple to all the questions, and he would if the data set has more apples, he will be getting most of them correct because he's answering all of them apples, right? He's not going through the extra effort of determining whether it's an apple and orange. So these are the things that we should keep in mind when preparing data, feeding it to the model. So comes the point of choosing. Thanks to years of research and hard work, we have multiple machine learning and deep learning to choose from. Depending on our problems, our data set, computing power, we can choose any appropriate. And the objective, our objective should be to properly tune a model instead of model hopping, right? So let's say you use linear regression to solve a problem, then you find that the performance is not that good. Instead of switching to a different algorithm, you should understand how to tune that particular algorithm so that it performs better. Instead of model hopping, you should tune it. Now the training loop. If I try to understand the learning process that the alien went through, you can see that first he had to make a decision, right? For that, we need a system which will be making predictions. Next, we need another system which will tell how wrong his prediction is. Right? First, we need someone to make predictions, and second, we need to determine how wrong that prediction was. Next, we need another system will improve the first system depending on how wrong the second system or this how wrong the prediction was. So in ML terms, we call these systems as hypothesis. Hypothesis is basically a fancy word for a formula, right? So that would be like formula. What you do, you give an input, like f of x, for example. Give x, you get value of f of x, right? That is basically a layman way of explaining what hypothesis is. The system which is responsible for telling how wrong hypothesis is called a loss function. An optimizer is responsible for improving the loss or proving how wrong that particular prediction was, and update the hypothesis in such a manner that the next time the next prediction that he makes is actually better than the previous one. Now, all these three things together is known as a model. So whenever you hear someone talking about model, they're basically talking about all three. And during the training process, this particular loop keeps going on and on until they run out of data points. Finally, we come to evaluation. Now, to evaluate a model, we use a special term called metrics. Presentations. Each measurement presentation is different for different problems. Basically, tell us how well our model was on the data set. In case of our alien friend, we used a metric called accuracy. Basically, calculated the number of correctly classified fruit divided with the total number of fruits. So for example, if there was able to classify 80 fruits correctly and totally 100 fruits, then the accuracy would be 80%. Now the most important part. Now I will be showing you an image and I will ask you, tell me what kind, like whether it's an apple or an orange. Have a good look at particular picture. And now tell me, what would you think this is? Now remember, you have only two choices. You can either answer an apple or an orange. Not answer none of these. So which one do you think? Which one would you say is the right answer according to you? In this, there's no correct answer, right? Because it's not an apple, not an orange. What do you think is the correct answer? Or what do you predict? Okay, so majority orange. There are some who think it's apple. So what can we take from? So maybe the ones who answered orange looked at the pulp of this particular fruit. They were like, this particular pulp looks very similar to an orange, therefore it must be an orange. Or the ones who chose apple may have thought that the skin of this particular fruit very similar to an apple, so it should be an apple. What we are seeing here is different people are having different preferences, different priorities, features, right? So they are giving more importance to a particular feature compared to others. Now, the similar concept applies to models as well. Okay, now we know that model predictions work on guesses, right? So there can be cases where models prefer a particular feature to be more important than the others. So maybe there's a model which thinks that I should give more importance to the firmness of the fruit. In that case, depending on the firmness, he would give a prediction, completely like ignore the other features. Now, there might be another issue where the model might learn wrong or unimportant features, data set. Right? For example, let's say I'm building a classifier of say, cats versus dogs. Right? Now, let's say in case of cats, what I have is there's a constant. Let's say I'm clicking pictures of cats with a white background. Right? So in that case, what will happen that the model will wrongly think that whatever picture has a white background basically has a cat in it, which is not the correct thing. We should make sure that the data that we are providing doesn't have any such significance or any such content there which might confuse the model or which might lead to wrong results. As an ML engineer, it's our responsibility that the model learns the correct information. And if the model is not properly tuned, very embarrassingly, like situations like these. This was quite recent where the AI camera showed a bald referee instead of following a ball. So as you can, like, I cannot blame the model, to be honest. It does look like. Basically, what would have happened is that the model might have preferred the curveness or the roundness of the ball to be given more importance, and maybe he would have noticed that this particular area also looks like the roundness of this particular area is also very similar to that ball. So he might have thought that this particular thing is also a ball and started following this. So in order to prevent such situations, we must make sure properly tune our models. The next question is 100% accuracy a good thing? So I've seen many like beginners in this field where they create a model and then they claim that their model has 100% accuracy and they feel good about it. But the reality is something completely different. Okay. For explaining that, let me ask you what this is. I want you all to answer what this particular book is. What is it used for? Okay, organizer, but what does it have? Organizer to mug. So this might be something which only like third year students would understand. Second year students, I think organizer is not applicable anymore. right? So it's basically a question bank for past semesters, right? So let's say we have three different students. Where like first student studies nothing, second student only mugs up this book, the third student studies other books along with this book. So in first case, what happens is the person that has studies nothing will neither be able to solve questions from this particular book, neither will he able to solve other questions. Right? So this particular situation is also known as underfitting in case of machine learning, where it has both poor training accuracy as well as validation accuracy. So it's neither been able to solve the questions that he's already seen, but he's also not able to solve the question he has never seen before. Right? So basically, he's not able to learn anything, and basically useless model. Shouldn't be using this anywhere. So let's talk about the second person. Second person has completely mugged up this book, right? So which means in the question paper, if he has a particular question from this book, he will be able to answer it very nicely. But if there's a question which is outside of this book, he'll not be able to answer that question. And that particular situation also happens in machine learning, and which is as overfitting. So what happens is the model basically understands the training data so well that anything outside of that data is unable to answer them correctly. Right? Basically, basically has good training accuracy. Validation accuracy is very low. It's basically mugging up the training data, and whenever there's some particular whenever there's a data which is outside the training set, he's unable to answer it correctly. Now, the third person who has read this book and also read other books, the ideal situation, right? And in case of machine learning, this would also be an ideal model where not only able to fit the training data well, but it's also able to fit the validation data. So next comes prediction. Prediction is basically the act of solving the problem, right? In case of our alien friend, it was basically the job he was doing for separating the fruits, the apple and orange. And the model that we were talking about can be deployed as a mobile app, web app, an API, as a desktop application, or various other deployment models. Like you can also deploy it on a cloud, and then you can it's basically an API. Basically, you can basically build these models. You can give them data, you can train them, evaluate and check how well they're doing. Once you're satisfied with that model, you can convert them, or you can how to say this, in plug them up with other applications app or in a web app, put it to a desktop application. Questions? Can you elaborate more on? Yeah, it is a waste of time. That's the whole point. Like, for example, let's say for example, in the question, let's say you have a multiple choice question, right? All the correct answers for all the questions, C. Okay. Let's say you're taking a self test, and all the answers for all your questions is the option C. What you do, you just tick option C on all the questions, and you will get 100% marks. But that's not correct, because you know nothing about the subject matter, but still you are getting 100 marks. So in the real world, when you will face a similar problem, you will not able to solve it, right? And in that case, it will be a huge issue. That's what we should keep in mind, that we should make sure that there's no data bias. Even if it's there is a data bias, or let's say we don't have enough data, we should look for other ways to make sure that this particular problem is avoided. Any real life examples of? Yeah, this is what I was talking about when I meant it's very subjective. What I do is I first check how close the mean and median values are. Okay. They're very close to each other, then I choose the mean or the average to replace it. And it actually depends on the data set. It's completely subjective from person to person, data set to data set. So replacing the empty values with average values is one of the ways to do it. There are also other ways to solve them as well. We'll talk about later on. I'm sorry, I don't understand which real life examples you're talking. What's an API? So API is basically an application programming. Basically, what you do is, like for example, when you visit a web page, what you do is you perform a GET request. When you perform a GET request to the server knows that this person is asking for the website, is asking for the website, right? The website source code or the HTML code. Basically. What it does, it gives that particular HTML code back to the browser. That browser displays that particular web page. Now, let's say in case of models, what happens is set up an API of that particular model, and whenever someone does a GET request, or yeah, so when someone does a GET request, let's say with an image, so what you do is you run some algorithm on that image and you return the result of that image back to the user. Let's say if you're trying to, let's say, classify between an apple and orange, you basically would return the response as an apple or an orange back to the user. Courses on YouTube. The best course out there is the machine learning course by Andrew Ng. Okay, that's the best out there. Also available on YouTube, and I think it's now free. You can go and have a look there. How is a bot deployed? Which like there are multiple ways to deploy it actually. Like it depends what kind of bot it is in the first place. Like if you're using Python, you can use various services like Heroku, or you can also deploy it on cloud. Yeah, actually it's a very open question actually. Various different ways to how can we use what algorithms to use. In how can we understand which algorithm to use at which you're trying. So in that, so that is again something which you have to, like, it's a skill which you have to gain using practice. Like machine learning is more of an art than a science. Okay? Later, when you learn about deep learning, you will notice that everything is happening on its own, not much control from our end. So you have to basically assess the situation yourself, try to understand which should be applied. Now, as a beginner, I would say that try to apply the models which are popularly used. For example, in case of regression, use linear regression. First, try with linear regression. See whether your model is overfitting or underfitting. Check on what the data set is, how the data set is, okay, and then for trying to classify stuff, then you for logistic regression or any other classification. So basically, you have to like it will come through to you through practice. Once you get the hang of it and once you start to understand how data works or how models work, you will be able to answer. It's machine learning by Andrew Ng. I think it's in Stanford University. There's also another one by deep learning, also owned by Andrew Ng. Deep learning. I would recommend you to do the machine learning first. And repeat the name. There in the chat, you can check. For a complete beginner, where shall I start learning ML? Means starting topics and all. See, for beginners, first you need to understand the basic concepts of statistics. First, you need to understand how what median mode does. Okay, that is like statistics is the first thing that you should do, and secondly, you should know a script. Currently, Python is Python. There are other there are other languages as well, which and basically you should first go with linear regression. Try to understand the loop that I showed you in training process, where you have the hypothesis and then you have the loss function and the optimizer. Try to understand how those things work. Once you get the idea of those, you can basically understand any machine learning algorithm out there. Even you can even like study research papers and you'll be able to understand what is basically written there. Do I need to learn Python completely? Not really. As long as you're able to like honestly like knowing a language is not the most important part of being a data scientist or an ML engineer. You should basically know what you're doing or what that particular uh, code is doing. Okay? Because I mean, you have Docs and Google available, so whenever you need to know something, you can definitely search it. You don't really have to be a master in Python to learn ML, but knowing a language is always better. As an intermediate, it's very necessary to have on with the projects. Have a clear. The best place to go is Kaggle. To Kaggle and try to solve their challenges. Just like you have CP websites, you have similar competitive websites for machine learning as well, called Kaggle. So you visit Kaggle and you can try to solve the past competitions. And once you build a model, try to deploy it. Okay. While you deploy it, you will be able to know how, like how to keep several things in mind while building models. So at some point you will be facing a problem where the model will be too large for whatever service you're trying to deploy it in. Okay, so in that case, you have to apply special methods or special algorithms, reduce the size and everything. So the best place I would suggest is to go to Kaggle and try to solve those competitions basically. Absolute beginner right now and have lots of interest in ML AI. What I do, please? If you're asking me for a language, then I would say Python, because Python currently has a lot of user base and a lot of tutorials available. Help you a lot. And apart from Python, I would suggest you to learn statistics very well. Really, probabilistic deals with probability and deals with probability. When you hear, or like when you will be solving or you will be analyzing data, you will come across various terms like Gaussian distribution or chi-square test or t-test. Those cases will be helpful for you if you know them beforehand. I would suggest you to go and study statistics nicely. And any language, anyone script, or I would suggest you to go Python. Very easy to learn. It's mostly used in case of like industry. JavaScript can also. JavaScript is not for meant for data science, but TensorFlow does have a library for you can use. But I would suggest not to use it because, see, what I'm trying to say is, remember the model picture that I gave you. There, that hypothesis was nothing but an equation, right? Equations can be written in any languages. The problem is we have to go the extra mile to write everything on your own. As in case of using Python or R or Julia, already have pre-written libraries for you or frameworks for you. You can simply import it and use, get your job done instead of manually doing everything again and again. For analyzing a dataset, how background situation. By background situation, if you mean the domain knowledge, then yes, it's very important. Example, let's say, let's say you're dealing with medical data, right? Say a particular feature has a range between, say, A and B, and a someone who's professional in the medical field will know that A and B's aren't the only ranges. Like that particular value can go beyond B or beyond A as well. But if you have less knowledge about that domain, then it will be hard for you to understand that, and it will be hard for you to also like fix the or tune the model. So domain knowledge is very important. You have domain, very good for you, but it's not. If you have the domain knowledge, you have an extra edge. Like if you perform very well analysis, you will be able to understand that that particular feature doesn't actually lie between those ranges. If you have good analysis skills, then you're good to go. There's something called machine learning. Pandas. Okay. Um, I mean, you can always look up tutorial videos on YouTube. My preference would be go and check their official documentation. Documentation are very well written. You have a name, arguments that you need to pass in. Also provide you serious like examples. Like if you into video type content, then go to YouTube and search. There are multiple, or if you're into go more into the depth, take the official documentation. Next would be to learn again the basics of statistics. Will also be like having multiple. Should I learn our language? If you're planning to completely work on analysis, then I are, because the analysis tools in R are better than the ones in Python. Example, in case if I build a linear model in R, basically it automatically tells me which features I should drop. In case of Python, when I use scikit-learn, it doesn't tell me. I have to find it out myself. In case of R, if I create a model, it basically automatically tells me that this particular feature is not important. You can get rid of it. If you're into analysis, or if you want to have further into analysis, then I would suggest you to go with. Can you please share how you started when you? Yeah, the first thing was like, how do I implement it? How do I implement this, and how does a model work? Are the first two problems that I faced. Like during my freshman year, I was a deep learning intern at IIT Ropar. There I had to work with like a computer vision problem where I have to. It was also a research project, so you have to implement that in scratch. Right. Problem that I faced most was I was not able to understand what this model thing was. Okay, I thought it was some sort of a special program or some sort of a special binary which would solve all your problems. But later on, when I studied about this process, like the hypothesis, then I studied about loss function, then I was able to understand that no, this is not exactly a binary or something, but it's more of a pipeline where where the output of one is sent into the input of another, and you basically try to understand what's going on. That answers your question. What is the difference between data science? Data science is basically that, as I said, like it's basically the same as, like, for example, a front end developer and a full stack developer. Okay, so it's the same difference between a front end developer and a full stack developer. A data scientist knows how to analyze data, also work on some ML models, whereas an analyst is only focused on analysis. Okay, it's like data science can be taken as a consulting domain, whereas analysis can be taken as a specialization domain. Okay, so the one who is a data scientist will have an idea of data analysis, parts of data engineering, and various other like subdomains, basically. And whereas analysis would only be focusing on analysis, and it won't be focusing on how to build a model or how to evaluate it. More like analyzing the data and giving answers. Is IBM professional? Yeah, I mean, any course will do, as long as you are able to implement the concepts on your own. It's good. Yeah, I mean, you can go with any. Just make sure, like, see, you're working to be a data scientist, not a software engineer. In those cases, like I've seen in various videos, they use wrong Python syntax. Like by wrong, I mean like their Python syntax is not exactly correct. But again, you're trying to be a data scientist, so you should completely ignore. Try to understand what's the concept that is being implemented, that particular code. As long as you're able to learn and implement it yourself, you are good to go. That's that we have in third sem. Is that enough, or we need to learn? Sorry. Oh, okay. I think it should be. I think it should be enough to get started. Later on, when you get into advanced topics, at that moment maybe you have to learn new things, but as a beginner, I think those are quite fine. The books you recommend. There's one book by Andrew Ng himself, as Machine Learning Yearning. It's also free, so you can go to deeplearning.ai, download the book. Basically, it tells you how to deploy models and also how to understand whether your model is correctly working or not. Apart from that, if you're can choose the ones which highly publish. Read one of those and they're quite good. And there's another book by Abhishek Thakur, the how to solve every machine learning problem. I don't remember the name exactly, but it's quite good. They're a bit confusing. Start learning. App. Yeah, well, we are like we have our sessions lined up. Sorry with that. Like we will take care of both the theoretical part as well as the. And I like best thing is like if you want a course, then you can go with machine. The book you can practice, then I will try to solve those. I would say to stick around and try attending our sessions. We will be having very interactive sessions. Also planning to have like hackathons, not hackathons, like in-class competitions. We're planning to have them. Just stick around and you will be able to learn all this. I before. Well, again, any one scripting language to implement what you learn and basic concepts of statistics. Well, first is the basics like mean, median, mode. Have the various probability distribution topics. Have Gaussian distribution. Know the names correctly, but you have to understand this distribution. Early, you have to understand how to test your test a particular. You will be able to answer the question whether your model is good or not. These things are important. I don't currently have anything in mind right now, but later on I can give you a detailed list. Channel here. If you're interested, for being such a good audience. It's actually not ended. Now that we have understood what machine learning is, let's try to understand the types of machine. First, we have is supervised learning. What happens in supervised learning is we basically know the answer to a question beforehand, right? For example, in this case, we know that this particular fruit is an apple. This particular fruit is an orange. You're basically providing this information to the model. You're asking that model understand the data behind it, or the understand the the property behind it. Okay. So what it does is it takes these data, take a note that we already have these labels enabled, right? So it knows that these are apples and these are oranges. When I pass this in, it creates a predictive model. Now remember the model that I told you, which was had three parts. One was hypothesis, loss function, and optimizer. So during training, all these three things are enabled. But when you are predicting things during that time, the loss function and the optimizer is disabled. Okay, only the hypothesis is enabled. just to make the prediction. Because you have to understand, when we are predicting an answer, right? We're not trying to learn from it. Those things are disabled, so keep that in mind. And so once we have the predictive model, what we do is we pass a data point or a data like this fruit, and then the predictive model tells us that it's an apple. We would have passed an orange, then it would have told us that it was an orange. Next, we have unsupervised learning. What unsupervised does is, like here you can notice that we have various different types of fruits here, and we don't have any labels. Like we have no idea that this is an apple or this is a pineapple or watermelon. We're passing this data unsupervised learning. It's a particular algorithm. What it does is it creates a predictive model again, and the point of this model is to segregate things which are similar. For example, in this case, let's say it took up this particular apple, right? This model tried to understand what the characteristics are, and he kept it aside. Say next he picked up this particular pineapple. He tried to compare the two. Let's say it found that the pineapple is quite different from the apples. I did that, no, it's not part of this particular group. Let's say then it picks up this particular apple and then tries to compare the two, sees that it's quite similar, and therefore it could be of the same group. Similarly, it tries to segregate or tries to segment data set into multiple groups. The how many groups you want is determined, like few algorithms are there which can determine by themselves, or sometimes we have to provide how many groups. Once we have this predictive model, what we can do is we can pass a data point. That predictive model can then tell us that it belongs to which particular group. In this case, we have passed in apples and tell us that that's what unsupervised learning is. So in this case, we don't have any labels, but still it was able to understand that these particular fruits are kind of different, and these can be segregated into groups. Next we have is, this is a bit, I would say, controversial. Like few people think that this should be part of machine learning. Some people think that no, it is different from machine learning. The main idea is that in this case there is two different things. One is the agent, the other is the environment. Agent does a particular action on the environment. The environment then gives back a state. Along with the state, it also gives a reward. So let's say, let's try to understand this using the alien example, right? So let's say that the alien was given an option or the job to dice apples and slice oranges. Now let us assume that the alien knows how to dice a particular fruit and how to slice a particular fruit, but he's not able to understand that which fruit is supposed to be diced and which is supposed to be sliced. So what we do is we first pass in the let's say we first pass an apple, right? What he does, he slices that apple, but that's not what we want. So what we do, we give a negative reward to that alien. So he's like, okay, this is not what I'm supposed to do. So and I'm rather supposed to do something else. So let's say next time we pass an orange. This time he slices it, which is the correct thing. So what we do, we give him a positive reward. So that particular alien knows that yes, this is what I'm supposed to do. Eventually, after multiple such fruits, he gets the idea that anything which is an apple has to be diced. Which looks like an orange has to be sliced. This is the basic concept. Basically, it's very similar to how pets are trained. So whenever a pet or a pet dog does something good, the trainer basically treats that pet using a particular treat, and so the pet knows that yeah, this is a behavior that my trainer wants me to, and therefore, and eventually he learns that that these things are doable and these are not. This is the basic idea behind this. Now let's come to the types of problems which we can solve using ML. First type is regression. So in this case, what happens is when you are trying to solve for a continuous variable, right? Example, let's say you have a data set of all the different features of a house, right? Let's say whether that house has a garden or not, whether that house has a garage or not, what is the area of that house. Let's say you have to determine what is the price of that house. Price can be any real value, a number between in any range, right? In that case, it is a regression problem. We're trying to predict a number or any real number, okay? And also be applied to salaries, like which employee should be paid with what salary, or predicting a particular fruit's weight. Okay, so anything which is numeric in nature considered as a regression problem. Next, we have classification. Classification, what happens is you are trying to classify between discrete objects, multiple discrete objects. In case of our alien example, we had the option of determining whether the fruit was an apple or an orange. Or let's say we are trying to analyze a particular transaction, trying to classify it, whether it was fraudulent or not, right? Or let's say there are multiple objects in a video and we want to classify which object is what. Okay, so in these cases, we are basically choosing from a set number of uh, discrete variables, right? Or let's like values. Like there's nothing in between. Okay, so like in between orange, apple or orange, there's nothing in between. It's either an orange or an apple. Those cases we call it as a classification problem. Next we have is called a clustering problem, which we saw in our unsupervised example with the various types of fruits and the model trying to like segregate them into different groups. Now this is very useful when you're trying in case of recommendation models. Okay, so let's say you have a lot of data about various movies and their genres, and you want to group them based on their genre. Like for example, let's say you want all the horror movies to be under one group, or let's say all the comic movies in the same group. So in those cases, clustering is very helpful. And or let's say you're a company and you want to understand the different types of users you have, different types of customers you have. So in that case, you can perform these clustering algorithms and you can understand that different segments or how many different types of customers you are actually giving your service to. So let's come to the popular scripting languages for machine learning. First is R. Like I previously mentioned, it's very good for analysis. If you're looking to be you want to specialize in analysis, then I should recommend you to go with R. Its syntax is very similar to MATLAB. So if you have previous MATLAB experience, you'll have it will be easier for you to learn. Second is Python, and it's the most used language for data analysis or data science in general. It also has support for various deep learning models, deep learning frameworks, other machine learning frameworks. It's also very easy to deploy Python projects. Other frameworks like we have Django or Flask, or it also supports it's also easier to support GPU programming on Python of various frameworks, and you can also use Python to quantize your models, use their size, and you can use it to deploy in mobile applications. Now the third one, which is a new competitor to this world, Julia. Now the best part of Julia is it can do whatever Python can and more, right? So whatever cons that we have of Python are covered by Julia. For example, Python is an interpreted language, so it's a bit slower than compiled language. But whereas Julia is actually a pre-compiled language, or just in time, basically compiles before you run the code, right? So it basically has very simple syntax like Python, but has none of the cons that Python has. So this Julia language could well take over Python. I wouldn't be surprised if one day Julia is being used everywhere instead of Python. So it's good if you have a basic idea of how Julia works, and Julia is also based on MATLAB syntax. You shouldn't have any issues. Next, let's talk about popular IDEs or integrated development machine learning. First, we have VS Code, jack of all trades. No matter what language you're trying to solve or what language you're trying to code in, it has support for all those languages. Julia till 1.0 used Juno as their official IDE, but after Julia 1.0, they have shifted to VS Code. To code in Julia, you have to install a particular extension on VS Code, and you have to use that as an official IDE. Next, we have Jupyter. This is the most popular the IDE that everyone uses in the data science domain or in the data science community. Even the name itself is actually derived from JU, which is Julia, PY, which is Python, and R means the R program. E has no meaning. Basically meant to be used by data scientists. Finally, we have RStudio. specific to the R programming language. RStudio also provides very additional features like and directly deploy within the RStudio itself. You don't have to like open or close tabs or things like that. Integrate with this with any cloud service, and it has a lot of features here. But it's only R specific. So if you're interested in R, then you should go with this. Now, as Python is very popular and like most people use Python, so we'll be referring Python for our upcoming sessions. Here are some of the popular libraries and features. The NumPy is basically used for scientific calculations. Okay, so whatever you do by default in MATLAB or Octave is done with the NumPy. Now, let's say you want to multiply two matrices, for example. Now, or let's say you want to add two matrices. So you could say that I can simply use Python lists and run loops to add two matrices, right? The thing is, NumPy has special optimizations backend which can help you like perform those operations in a much faster way. Right? For example, NumPy actually implements a feature called vectorization, where it basically vectorizes, like when you let's say you're multiplying two different matrices, it basically instead of looping through the entire matrix, it is vector scalars. It's a different concept. Not go into deep much. Basically provides very optimizations and makes Python programming very much faster, especially for computer science, for data science related tasks. Next we have pandas. Pandas creating tables and basically creating structured data. So and the best part is pandas and on various other like all the like libraries that I will be mentioning here, they go well together with each other. Like they have like an ecosystem kind of a NumPy object is recognized by a pandas method and a pandas object is. You shouldn't have any issues if you're trying to work in Python with multiple libraries. Next we have matplotlib, which is used for plotting. Trying to use plots, then matplotlib that you can use. There's also the OG framework out there. Other frameworks like Seaborn as well, in a derivative of matplotlib. Have an idea of how matplotlib works, you should be able to plotting libraries as well. Next, we have PyTorch. PyTorch is developed by Facebook and used for like deep learning applications. We have scikit-learn. If you're implementing basic machine learning algorithms, not just basic, like any machine learning algorithms, which is not a neural network, should go with this particular framework and help you quickly create models. Quickly help you create models, train models, perform different analysis, apply metrics to it. Like it has a lot of tools out there. I've seen people using scikit-learn just for the extra tools that it provides, like metrics and stuff, instead of actually using the models. So it's a good module that you should learn. Next is TensorFlow. It is developed by Google, also used for again developing deep learning models. Now you can use. Now there's a debate between PyTorch and TensorFlow, but I would suggest that anything you feel comfortable in should be previously in TensorFlow 1.0, the syntax was a bit different and difficult to understand, but after TensorFlow 2.0, everything is very simpler and you shouldn't have any issues using TensorFlow. And finally, we have OpenCV. So if you have to manipulate images or any form of image data, or you have to implement any form of computer vision algorithm, which is not a machine learning algorithm, it is implemented through traditional programming. Those cases, OpenCV is a very good library to use. There's also another library called Pillow or PIL, is also known as the Python imaging library, but it has the algorithms that it uses is not compatible with other frameworks. I would recommend you not to use that. And instead, finally, before wrapping up, I would like to information. Yeah, sure, I will provide you the link. Okay, no problem. I like the whole point of this session was to make sure you get the idea of like you're able to relate the different terms, okay, so that you can actually hop in a conversation. Like if there are two people talking about like overfitting, if someone says ki my model is overfitting a lot, in that case you will be able to join in the conversation and you can at least try to understand what's going on. That was the whole point of the session, because later on we'll be diving deep into the mathematics and implementation details. In that case, when we will be talking about overfitting, you will be having a bit of an idea of what we're actually talking about. You will also be able to relate to that alien example. Right, so that's the objective of this session.